Imagine a life built entirely on fantasy. A world of costumes, ring lights, and carefully curated angles where you can be anyone you want to be. For some, the internet provides a stage to reinvent themselves, to rise from the ashes of a difficult past and become a star. But what happens when the line between the persona and the person begins to blur? What happens when the violence of a horror movie script bleeds into reality? Welcome back to Case Unboxed. I'm Peter. Today, we are heading down to the humid suburbs of Tampa Bay, Florida, to unbox a digital trail of deception. This is a story about a relationship that looked picture-perfect on social media, but was rotting from the inside out. It is a case where the silent witness wasn't a person, but a piece of smart technology that captured the chilling final moments of a young man's life. This is the case of Melissa Turner and the death of Matthew Trussler. Our story centers on Melissa Rose Turner. Born in the early 90s, Melissa was a quintessential Florida native. Like many of us, she navigated the awkward transitions of adolescence. But Melissa carried a heavy burden, quite literally. Throughout her late teens, she struggled significantly with her weight, tipping the scales at over 250 pounds. This wasn't just a physical struggle. It was a mental cage that trapped her confidence and limited her dreams. She was a passionate fan of fantasy, horror movies, and the intricate world of cosplay. But she felt she couldn't physically embody the characters she idolized. However, around 2011, Melissa decided to rewrite her own story. With immense determination, she overhauled her lifestyle. Over 2 years, she shed nearly 100 pounds. It was a physical transformation that naturally led to a psychological one. The shy, insecure girl began to fade, and in her place emerged a woman hungry for the spotlight. By 2014, Melissa discovered a lucrative avenue for her newfound confidence: the world of cam modeling. Under the alias Thorned Rose, she combined her love for horror cosplay with adult entertainment. She built a brand, a following, and a significant income stream. She was independent, successful, and living on her own terms. But the internet is a lonely place. And eventually, Melissa sought a connection that wasn't transactional. Enter Matthew Trussler. Matthew was, by all accounts, a gentle soul. Born in Massachusetts, he was a hard worker who had moved to Florida to be closer to his brother and to chase better career opportunities. He worked in insulation, a grueling job in the Florida heat. But he never complained. He was the kind of guy who posted photos of his dogs and cats, a man who found joy in the simple things. When he met Melissa in 2017, the attraction was magnetic. On the surface, they were the power couple of the digital age. They bought a beautiful, spacious 4-bedroom home in the quiet community of Riverview. They had a pool, a yard for their dogs, and a garage for their projects. Matthew even supported Melissa's career, occasionally appearing in her content and helping with the business side of her brand. To their Facebook friends, they were living the American dream. But if you peeled back the layers of filters and status updates, the foundation was cracking. Neighbors in the quiet cul-de-sac of White Barn Way often heard shouting. Voices raised in anger drifting over the fences were becoming a disturbing norm. Matthew, once vibrant and social, began to withdraw from his family. His brother noticed the change, later describing the relationship as toxic. But in domestic disputes, the truth is often hidden behind closed doors, invisible to the outside world until it is too late. The breaking point arrived on a crisp morning in October 2019. It was October 18th, 2 weeks before Halloween. The front yard of the Turner Trussler residence was decked out in spooky decorations, a nod to Melissa's love for the macabre. But at 8:45 a.m., the horror on the property ceased to be artificial. A frantic 911 call shattered the morning calm. It was Melissa. She was hysterical, telling the dispatcher that she had found her boyfriend, Matthew, unresponsive on their back patio. She claimed she had walked out and discovered his cold, lifeless body. When first responders arrived, they walked into a scene that confused them. Matthew Trussler lay dead near the pool. He had suffered a catastrophic stab wound to the back. His body was pale, and rigor mortis had already begun to set in, indicating that he had been dead for hours, not minutes. This biological fact immediately contradicted Melissa's story of just finding him. Detectives brought Melissa in for questioning. At first, she played the role of the grieving girlfriend, the shocked discovery. But police interrogation rooms are designed to dismantle lies, and investigators quickly pointed out the inconsistencies. Why was he cold? Why did the blood look dry? Cornered by logic, Melissa's story shifted. The innocent discovery narrative vanished. A new script was introduced: self-defense. She told detectives that Matthew had come home drunk in the early hours of the morning. She claimed he was belligerent, that he had woken her up and attacked her. According to Melissa, Matthew had strangled her, thrown her around, and eventually lunged at her with a knife. She claimed that in a desperate struggle for her life, she managed to grab the weapon and stab him once in the back to stop him. She showed them a small cut on her hand as proof of her struggle. It is a narrative we hear often, and in many tragic cases, it is the truth. But detectives work with evidence, not stories. And the evidence at the scene was screaming a different tune. First, the autopsy revealed that Matthew had defensive wounds on his arms. Wounds typically found on a victim trying to shield themselves from an attacker, not an aggressor. Second, the stab wound in his back was deep and severe. But the most damning piece of evidence wasn't on the body. It was watching them from a neighbor's house. In the modern age, we are rarely truly alone. A neighbor across the fence had a Nest surveillance camera installed above their garage. While the fence blocked the video view of the patio where Matthew died, the high-quality microphone on the device heard everything. This audio recording became the centerpiece of the investigation. It didn't capture a woman fighting for her life against a drunken monster. It captured the calculated rage of a predator. The audio starts around 4 a.m. You can hear shouting, but it's not Matthew screaming. It's Melissa. Through the digital static, her voice pierces the night. She is heard screaming, "Get up!" repeatedly. You hear the shattering of glass. You hear sounds of a physical struggle. But the dynamic is all wrong for her self-defense story. Melissa sounds in control. She sounds angry. She is heard yelling hateful obscenities, screaming, "I hate you," and "Go die." At one point, Matthew is heard. He doesn't sound like a man on a rampage. He sounds exhausted, possibly injured, and trying to de-escalate. Then there are sounds of more items breaking, followed by a chilling silence. Perhaps the most disturbing part of the timeline is what happened, or didn't happen, next. Based on the audio, the fatal altercation ended before 5 a.m. Matthew's smart heart rate monitor showed his heart stopped beating shortly after the screaming ended. Yet, Melissa didn't call 911 until 8:45 a.m. For nearly 4 hours, while Matthew lay dying and then dead on their patio, Melissa did not call for help. She waited. The prosecution would later argue this was the time she used to clean up, to formulate her story, and to stage the scene. That 4-hour gap is the difference between a panic response and a cold-blooded decision. During the trial, the defense tried to paint Matthew as an abuser and Melissa as a terrified woman suffering from battered woman syndrome. They argued that the audio was just a snapshot of a volatile relationship and didn't prove intent. But the jury was presented with the cold, hard facts. The defensive wounds on Matthew, the lack of significant injuries on Melissa, the 4-hour delay, and that haunting audio tape where the only aggression heard was coming from the woman holding the knife. The cut on Melissa's hand. Experts testified it was likely caused by her hand slipping down the blade as she stabbed Matthew with extreme force. A phenomenon known as slippage. Common in stabbings where the perpetrator strikes bone or uses excessive momentum. The jury didn't buy the performance. They saw the difference between the character Thorned Rose and the woman Melissa Turner. They realized that the person controlling the narrative wasn't the victim, but the aggressor. Melissa Turner was found guilty of second-degree murder. The judge, seeing through the manipulation that had defined Melissa's defense, sentenced her to 20.5 years in prison. This case leaves us with a heavy reality to process. We often discuss domestic violence with a gendered lens, and statistically, women are indeed the primary victims. But the case of Matthew Trussler stands as a stark reminder that men can be victims too. Men can be isolated from their families, emotionally abused, and physically attacked. And when the final tragedy strikes, the perpetrator may try to hide behind societal assumptions to escape justice. Matthew Trussler was a young man with a future. He was a brother, a son, and a lover of animals. His life was ended not by a stranger in the dark, but by the person who had promised to love him. As we close this case file, remember that social media is a curated gallery, not a documentary. The smiles we see online can mask deep fractures. And sometimes, the only thing that reveals the truth is a silent camera on a neighbor's wall, listening in the dark. Thank you for joining me on this investigation. If you found this deep dive compelling, please leave a like and subscribe to Case Unboxed for more verified true crime reports. Stay safe, stay observant, and I'll see you in the next one.